Hi, my name's Aislinn Janek. Welcome to my exhibition. The title of this show is Continuity of Chronos, and this is really a meditation on time and repetition and how our routines really form our sense of self and identity. So I am a mixed media painter. I have always had this mixed media approach to a two-dimensional surface, meaning that I am interested in more than just acrylic paints. I like to stick with mostly water-based medium because I find that they're easier to interchange with each other. So for example, I am using acrylic paint on a lot of these as well as ink. And I'm also using batik practices, which is a process with wax, and as well as stitching. So these lines, these vertical lines that you see is actually threads going in and out of the linen or the canvas. So I consider myself a painter. And I consider a lot of times I say to people, oh, I'm going to go paint. But what I'm actually doing is using the thread. But to me, these acts are the same. I'm just using a different medium. Yeah, it's hard to describe with words, but I do find these to be very painterly. And even though I'm using a lot more than just paint, I'm layering, I'm adding to them. So the actual like the visual part of it is a two-dimensional surface, but if you come to the side of it, they can be quite topographical in the way that you can see the different layers forming. So I like to personally experience paintings from all sides. So I make work that with that in mind, that people are not just going to see a photo of it, but actually be in the space with the work. So beyond painting, it means more than just paint. So it's even on the actual support. So meaning the linen here, there's different marks, and those are created with the wax and tie dye. So there's so many methods that go into the work. I almost don't know if they're minimalism anymore because there is so much happening on the surface. So I like to reduce the color palette for that reason because I do think that there's so much going on. Uh, and these works are for people who are willing to take the time to notice. Mm-hmm. So if these were all happening in different colors, you would see it immediately, but the way that I want people to view them or the way that I experience them myself is that you kind of start from far away and you're like, is that a white block on the wall? And if that intrigues you, then you come closer and you see that it's much more than that. Yeah, so I am incorporating. To me, this is a full palette of color. There is these ones. I call these gray because they are the support of them is the natural color of the linen, and it's just a cooler kind of natural tone compared to a canvas. But there is gold on this, there is white on this, there is black on this, and these are also like other neutrals that are mixed in. They just take a little bit longer to register. And so and I love this space as well because I'm sure as the day moves, or as the sun moves throughout the day, rather, that the work looks completely different. The shadows look different. Um, the threads are also different finishes. So some are shiny, some are cotton, and so they're more matte. And as well as just the paint on the surface, some of it's matte, some of it's gloss, but it again, it's whether you're traveling around it or whether the light is moving, it looks subtly different at different times of day or from different perspectives. Yeah, yeah. And so most of the materials that I'm using are very additive. Like, again, it's kind of both. It's because I'm adding the paint, I'm adding the thicker acrylic medium to build up these layers. But then the first, after I kind of have the base down, what I do is I use a sewing machine, but just to puncture. So I am like taking away in a way, and the same thing. These negative spaces are created with tape. So I'm first tearing tape. So you're adding it, then you're painting, then you're putting more tape, then you're painting more tape, and then I don't know what it's really going to look like until I remove it. And I guess that's kind of like the pausing or the, I guess kind of, I don't want to use the word destructive, but like opposing, I guess the opposite of adding would be just subtracting. And that's the easiest way to say it. Yeah, so this is something that, again, I learned about kind of researching when I was here last year for the residency that I did in Nishiaizu. And ma to me is when it's something that I think about all the time, but we don't really have a word for it in English. So when I came across this, I was very excited, as you can tell. Again, going back to the actual physicality of the work, like the actual motions that I'm doing is very repetitive. And so the making of the work is also the subject matter, if that makes sense. And so thinking about these as meditation, a lot of times I'm working through the paintings. Like I'm working on them, but I'm working through them. And what I mean by that is I'm breathing with them. And so the ma is not the inhale, it's not the exhale, but to me that's like where it's all happening. That's where the work is happening. Yes and no. It's the space in between the happenings, I suppose. Yeah, so like um like these spaces on the wall to me are just as important and as integral to the work as the physical painting. And that's what the ma, as far as I understand it, maybe I'm not translating it correctly, but that's kind of how I work with the concept. Landscape, you can't separate these from landscapes for sure. I kind of consider them more of mental scapes or mindscapes. And yeah, but again, the way in like a topographical map is what we call it in English, and it's when a map has and it kind of shows the mountains and the rivers, and so I kind of see the paintings like that as well. It's not locality, it's not necessarily, well, that's interesting because it's not necessarily place based work, but I am oftentimes traveling as I am creating work. So some of the paintings were made during my first residency here in Japan in Fukushima in Nishiaizu. And most of the works were made in my studio in New York. But then I'm sure some of the white works as well were made at another residency in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. All places that have mountains and that have this kind of snowy aspect to it. So that's interesting. But you just brought up, I wasn't really thinking about that. I kind of think of them as internal. Yeah, I think for me, like one hand washes the other with comedy and art. That each practice kind of refuels me for the other. So and really how I got into doing stand-up was because I was so nervous speaking in front of people. So doing artist talks or even doing an interview like this, I would be just a mess and shaking. And it was really something that it wasn't always a problem for me, but it became an issue. And I just decided that I want artist talks to be a part of what I do. I want to be able to speak about my work in front of a camera or in front of other people. And so instead of taking kind of just a public speaking class, I already loved stand-up comedy watching it. So I took a stand-up comedy class. And then through that class, I just discovered that I love to do stand-up as well. So I also am a professional comedian in New York. And I performed here at Tokyo Comedy Bar as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I do find that it's a lot of the same skills. It's a lot of editing. It's a lot of thinking conceptually, and then you have to translate what you think is funny or what you think is interesting. I don't necessarily think my paintings are humorous, but I think that they're interesting. And so those are the observations that I'm making. And again, it's mixed media. It's that mixed media approach of like, I can't just be a painter. I have to add something to it. And so that's what I chose. Yeah. So for example, I want people to at least contemplate or like think about the work. And I think that the topics that I'm covering in my stand-up are very personal to me and they are my perspective. So I think that yes, the ultimate goal of stand-up comedy is to make people laugh. But at the end of my sets, a lot of times people tell me, oh, I never thought of it that way, or I never saw that perspective. And so there is still an aspect of me sharing something personal. So again, it's just a different medium. Yeah, so this show, I think it's more maybe the prequel to like this is definitely the like a starting point for me. And I think about this show as again this one more referencing kind of the space in between these in between happenings and building the repetition and self-discovery, where the Kawata show, I would say they're both similar and a lot of the work references each other, and you'll notice that it's nearly the same processes, but after you repeat so many times, there's subtle shifts in that. And so that show, I would say, is more about owning your authority. Owning your authority, meaning like, I guess, just like being the boss. Yeah, owning like your own mastery, where this is more like self-discovery. So yeah, so I want people to engage with the work visually, so no touching. That's everyone's first question, is that they want to touch it. And I think it's because it's hard to tell what it is. And because it is beyond painting. So everyone is quite curious, which I love that people are interested in my work. But I want people to, I mean, I think of these works as my diary, as like my journal entries in a way, and that each of these stitches is a mark of time, whether that's a day or an action or a month, whatever increment you're using. So I want people to, I guess, see their own experience in that, and so their own routines and how the repetition of that creates mastery, but then also how our routines constrain us or confine us. So it's both. We're limited by our routines because we can only do what we do in a day, but that repetition kind of creates our own authority.